Bismillahir Rahmanir Raheem. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, dear viewers, to Islam Today, an English language talk show coming from Sharjah in the United Arab Emirates on Sharjah TV. We have on our show today Brother AbdurRaheem McCarthy. And Brother AbdurRaheem, welcome and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you very much, and thank you for being on our program. We wanted to talk to you today about many things, actually, but one of the things we want to talk to you about first is how you became Muslim, and you know, the relationships that you formed as a result of being Muslim, and how the interaction was and reaction with your family and your friends. But first, tell us about your background. I understand, of course, we've had a chance to talk, that you're originally from America. So where in America did you come from, and give us a little background.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa usalli wa usallim ala al-mab'uth rahmatan lil alameen. Nabiyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Wa ba'd. I'm originally from America, as you mentioned. Before that, however, my grandparents were from Ireland. They migrated to America. My grandfather and my father were both born in America, as was I. I was born there as well. And I'm from the Washington metropolitan area, Washington, D.C. area.
The East Coast.
The East Coast,
yeah, like myself. Yeah.
Yes. We're about, I think, a 4-hour drive from you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's about, so I'm from the D.C. area. That's where I was born and raised. I was there all my life. And that's where I became Muslim in 1994. How I became Muslim, actually I had an appointment with one of my friends, and I had started before Islam on a path that was not pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it was not pleasing to my parents as well and to my family. My family is a good family and a successful family in America. However, I chose to take a path other than what they had chose for me. So I was going down a wrong path, and a path that was going to end with a lot of troubles for myself and for my family, a lot of sorrow for my family anyways. But that all changed one day. I had an appointment with one of my friends in D.C., and he didn't show up for the appointment. He was very forgetful, which was good for me. It turned out.
And when you say D.C., you mean in Washington, D.C.?
In the Washington, D.C.,
the capital.
The capital, yeah. So I actually lived on the outskirts in Virginia, but we still go all the way into D.C. So it's all called the Washington metropolitan area because it's spread out.
Northern Virginia.
Northern Virginia, exactly, yes. So what happened on that day is when I went to the appointment, he wasn't there. So his father told me, wait for him in the basement. And I went there, he said, you can play with his Sega. I don't know if his Sega's still around, I'm getting old now, if it's still there or not.
It's a video game,
yeah,
right?
like the PlayStation now. I guess it's still around, I don't know. Anyways, he told me, go play with that. So he had taken it, and my friend had taken it to his mother's house, so it wasn't there, so I had nothing to do. So as I was sitting there, his father starts to read the Quran. He had tapes, cassette tapes, reading the Quran in Arabic and with English translation, and he's following along in his Quran in the living room.
So your friend was Muslim?
No, his father was Muslim.
His father was Muslim?
But he wasn't a Muslim. He hadn't become Muslim. His father became Muslim 10 years before that, but he hadn't become Muslim.
Yeah.
He was actually my friend. He was older than me at that time. He was maybe about 24. I was only about 18 at that time. So he hadn't become Muslim, but his father had become Muslim. So anyways, what happened is that, I had nothing to do, so I heard this strange recitation. I didn't know what it was. And I was always curious about Islam. What is Islam? We hear of a lot of things in America, but most of it's negative, and most of it's not, proper information about Islam. And today we hear, about Islam, the terrorists and all this other stuff, which obviously we know as Muslims it's not true. And the people living in this part of the world, they know this is not true as well. During those days, a lot we would hear, and especially as white Americans, they would use in the media the Nation of Islam to say that this is the religion of the black man and the white people can't be Muslims. So we hear this, that the white people are devils and this. So this is the information I have in my head about Islam. So I wanted to know. So I went and asked him about Islam. I said,
your friend's father.
Friend's father, yeah. So I went in to ask him about Islam, and I remember the first thing I had stepped with my boots on his prayer rug. He was upset about that, And then he said to me, sit down. I said, I have some questions about Islam. And I started to ask him. One of the first questions I asked, I said, can I be a Muslim, as a white guy?
Now, was he African-American?
African-American, yes.
He was African-American,
yeah.
Okay, good.
So he said, yeah, of course. He said, no, this stuff you hear in the media has nothing to do with Islam. He said, whether you're black, brown, white, he said, even if you're purple and pink, I want to exaggerate about it, that Islam is the religion for all of mankind. So I was interested. We started to talk a little bit about Islam, and then, the time was up for me to go. So I requested from him some books. So he gave me some books about Islam, and most of them were translated from the Saudi embassy. So I took these books and I went home. On the metro going home, I read a little bit about the Muslim belief in Jesus alayhi salam,
Yes.
Peace be upon him, and I was interested in that. And it was the first time I heard, we had grown up, the 3-in-1 theory, the Trinity.
Yeah.
I had my gold cross on all the time on my
Yes.
neck.
Now, let me ask you now, with the name McCarthy, and from Ireland originally, I mean, in terms of ancestral, can I assume then that you and your family were Catholics?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
all right. Roman Catholics.
Yeah, okay, we're Catholics, yeah.
Okay.
So even I was in some time in a Catholic school in elementary school. But again,
Catechisms and things of this nature.
Yeah. So that's what we were into when I was young, obviously. My family, my father's side, they used to go to church a lot. On my mother's side, they didn't go to church a lot. But I was raised, even for some time, I was in a Catholic school, in elementary school. So what happened is that these books, that when I first heard about, the Trinity, and then, that's not proper, this was kind of, interesting to me.
Sure.
But as I said before, I was 18 at that time. So, you're 18, you're not really interested in reading or religion and these type of things. So I left it, and I didn't even, bother to read it again. I was doing what I was doing, with my friends and hanging out and, doing things we shouldn't have been doing, getting in trouble and what have you. So one night, I remember we were coming back from inside D.C., and I still remember we went this time to Southwest D.C., and that time, the last time was Northeast where I went. So I was coming back from Southwest D.C., and we got into a car accident. It wasn't my fault. The guy had came across from a 4-lane road and cut in front, and I didn't see him. And at this time, I didn't have a driver's license. So I figured, I'm going to go to jail. Obviously, you're going to get in a car accident, I don't have a driver's license. So I decided I didn't want to go to jail, so I said, I'm going to run.
Wow. Run where?
My friend's house was on the other side of where we had the car accident.
Yes.
So I was telling, some of my friends were laughing because it was like a movie, I'm running through these woods. I know that my friend's house is on the other side, but where is it at?
You don't know.
I don't know, but I know it's on the other side somewhere. So I'm running through these woods for the first time in my life. I left the car. I bought it for $600. It wasn't important to me. So I go into the house, where my friend's house, and I stayed there. And then, for about a week, I don't have a car to go back out of the house. So that's why I'm telling the story about,
Yes.
leaving the car and the accident. Because this is, strange things happen in your life, for a lot of good, for a certain reason.
And we don't know why it's happening at the time.
Exactly. So I got in this accident, and I leave my car. I was just sitting there waiting, and then I decided just to leave it and run. So when I don't have the car now, what can I do? I can't go out. You have to get on the bus and go out. I'm not really into that. So I remember one time, and I was living at that time, my mother had moved actually to North Carolina herself from the D.C. area. My grandparents were still there. So what happened is that I remember I have these kutub, I have these books about Islam.
Yes.
And these books, and they were sitting on my shelf, I hadn't read them. And my grandparents, they're from Virginia as well, originally, but they're from the country in Virginia.
Yes.
And they're moving to the city later, but they're originally from the country. So they're really set in their ways, no cable TV, nothing modern, really a boring house for an 18-year-old teenager. So I had nothing to do in the house. So I remember these books, And I said, okay, let's go read. Why not? And I used to like to read. I'm not saying I didn't read at all. I used to like to read. And that's what I say often to my students now when I teach, that I'm surprised at the level of the reading. A lot of them are not good readers. Not just here in this part of the world, even if you go back to America now.
Yes.
The level of reading, unfortunately, is very bad with the youth now. They're not good readers. Yeah. And even though we used to be involved in a lot of mischief, we were actually good in reading, and I would read. So I went and I took a book called Islam, the Religion of Truth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I know this book.
Yeah. And I started to read it. And I really liked the book, and it really just, I got attached to it. I read the whole book. This was on Thursday night. I read the whole book in an entire sitting. And I decided immediately after this book that I wanted to become Muslim. I said, this is the way. This is what I've been looking for.
Alhamdulillah.
And I knew even before this, that I wanted religion in my life.
Yes.
Like I said, I had the cross on my neck.
Yes.
Before I was a Muslim, obviously. And then at that time, also I used to try to read the Bible, even though I found it boring, I couldn't read it. But I knew I had this
inclination, this desire.
Yeah, desire to be religious.
Yes.
And when I read that, I said, no, this is the way. This is what I want. Obviously, the first thing that affected me was the issue of Tawheed, of Islamic monotheism, and the one true God, and the issue of Trinity not being possible and not being something that is suitable for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yes.
Not something that's suitable for God to be 3-in-1. And when I read this, it affected me in a major way. And I never heard this before.
Yes.
We grew up, 3-in-1, And all of a sudden, you know, I realized that what I'm reading is actually, it's just the truth, and what I've been taught since a young boy, it's not.
It's not true. Yeah. Simple as that.
As simple as that, yeah. So this is one thing that affected me. Another thing which you know, a lot of people might find strange, it really, really affected me, is when he was talking about, the author, he was talking about the prayer and how the Muslim prepares for the prayer, his 5 daily prayers, and the routine he goes through, the rituals he goes through to prepare himself for prayer. One of the things that he mentioned was, first of all, is that a Muslim has to be in a place where nobody else can see him. He has to conceal himself when he uses the bathroom.
Yes.
For me, this really affected me. Why? Because, as you know, Danny, you're coming from America, and you came to Islam just like I did. And maybe a lot of the viewers as well, they know this if they've been to the West or in some Western restaurants or what have you here, you'll see that when they relieve themselves openly standing next to each other.
Yes, exactly.
I always used to hate this.
Yes.
I couldn't say it before as a non-Muslim because they think it's not a manly thing.
Because they think you, they think something is wrong with you.
But as a Muslim, alhamdulillah, we're proud of that.
Exactly.
This is, you know, how we do. So subhanAllah, what happened is this affected me. The second thing is they said that when a Muslim relieves himself, he sits down. When he urinates, he sits down. And this also is not a manly thing in the West. Even before Islam, the Prophet ﷺ, Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, the Arab used to make fun of him because he used to sit down and say this is not a manly thing, just like in our customs in America.
Exactly.
So I used to love to sit down, which you're not supposed to do in America, you know. But so when I found the Muslims did this, it really affected me because it's something I've been doing all my life. Obviously, when you're in the bathroom behind closed doors.
Of course.
So this, and it affected me big time.
Wow.
And this is what Muslims don't realize, is that, you know, when you implement Islam, the effect it has on the non-Muslims. And I'll tell you a quick story about an older lady who was in the United Kingdom. She worked in a university, and her job was washing the clothes and then ironing the clothes of the students. So she noticed and we will tell the viewers, maybe some non-Muslim viewers don't understand why a Muslim would sit down and go through all this trouble. It's because when we stand in the prayer, obviously, that we don't want to have impurities on our clothes when we pray, because it's not allowed in Islam. Of course. So a Muslim must sit down. Also, he must cleanse himself with water thoroughly, so he's not doesn't have impurities on his clothes when he prays. So there was a Muslim student in this university who implemented this. He would sit down and he would clean himself with water thoroughly. So when his clothes would come in, there would be no stains on his undergarments, on his underwear. So all the other non-Muslim students who brought their clothes, they would have stains on their
Yes, I understand. Yes, naturally.
So because they're not,
because you're not making the istinja, as we call it, or the purifying ourselves, or using the water in the proper.
So when she saw this Muslim student never had stains on his undergarments, she was, you know, as they say, curiosity killed the cat. But in this situation, actually, it saved the cat.
Yes,
because what she did, she said, I have to ask this guy why he doesn't have any stains like all the other students. So she asked him, and she had been doing this job. She said, I've been doing it for 25 years, she told him. She said, you know, why are you different? He said, it's very simple, because he said, the fact is I'm a Muslim, and I'm ordered that if I want to pray, to do what? This istinja, to clean myself thoroughly, so I don't have impurities on my clothes, so I can stand in the best of states in front of God. So when she heard this, she said, a religion like this, it has to be the religion of truth. So she, mashallah, she became Muslim right after hearing after knowing this fact. And also, this is one of the things that affected me majorly. So I decided the next day, I decided I wanted to become Muslim. So I called my friend's father that day, or early in the morning actually, and I said, I want to become Muslim, what do I do? He said, after Maghrib, you come to me, and, before Maghrib, and he was like an hour before Maghrib. He said, catch the metro and come to D.C., and we'll go to the Islamic Center in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
I don't know if you've been there before.
Yes, I've been to it several times.
With all the flags.
Yes, exactly. Near the Embassy Row, where we call it.
Exactly. So I went there, and Maghrib, I prayed Maghrib. I wasn't a Muslim at the time. I prayed Maghrib with the Muslims. I was just, imitating what they're doing.
Just following them. Yes, exactly.
So after that, he said, we have a brother who wants to become Muslim. So I got up in front of the masjid, in front of the brothers, and I made my shahada, and I became Muslim. And that was in January, the beginning of January 1994.
Wow. Fantastic. Fantastic. So, okay, so now, this is a fantastic story, actually, and you and I have talked before, but I haven't never asked you this, about how you came to Islam. And it's amazing, because it's amazing the kinds of stories that people have in terms of what